Okay. Hello and Hafade, each of you from Hawaii, Guam, or the mainland. My name is Al Ogata, and I'm the president and CEO of CyberHawaii. I want to welcome you to today's webinar. It's part of the Fortify Cybersecurity Education Series. So for those of you who don't know us, CyberHawaii is a nonprofit information sharing and workforce development organization that focuses on improving cyber resiliency in Hawaii's small and mid-sized businesses, as well as within the community as a whole. We're supported by membership dues provided by the organizations shown here. Um, these organizations recognize the value of improving the cyber resilience of all organizations within the state and are helping to build strong cyber controls outside of the boundaries of their own networks. We're also supported by strategic partners at the state of Hawaii and by federal agencies such as DAS, Department of Homeland Security, CISA, the FBI, Coast Guard, and Secret Service. So basically, the series that we're working on is really intended to provide businesses with some practical advice related to some top-end topics that CISOs, around the state and cybersecurity professionals follow. So today's webinar is on incident response management. Um, so basically, despite all our efforts to prepare, emergencies do happen, and their effects can be devastating. Having strong cybersecurity controls in place does make us more secure, but they don't guarantee that mistakes won't be made during everyday business operations. This is often how ransomware gets embedded or how threat actors are able to trick the employees into revealing sensitive information. Having an incident response plan is critical to being able to survive disasters. Incident response plans cover things like the assets you're trying to protect, the most common threats your business faces, how your information systems are configured, how you'd bring them back following an attack or natural disaster, and who you would notify. In this webinar, you're going to hear from experts from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, and the State of Hawaii Office of Homeland Security about the importance of having an incident response plan to cover cybersecurity incidents. Just a quick note from an administrative standpoint, um, questions should be entered into the chat window and will be read at pauses in the presentation. This presentation is being recorded, and the recording will be available on the CyberHawaii website in a few days. In addition, the presenters have agreed that you can contact them after today's presentation should you have any questions or need assistance. Their email addresses will appear during the presentation. During this presentation, you're requested to remain on mute unless asking questions during designated Q&A sections. Your presenters for today are Jenna Lynn Labrunda and Ms. Jimmy Collins. Jenna is a cybersecurity advisor with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. She's responsible for Hawaii, Guam, the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas Islands, and American Samoa. She's based in Guam and is an experienced cybersecurity and information technology professional with over 15 years of experience. She's a certified information systems security professional and a graduate of the University of Guam with a double major in technology and e-commerce and computer information systems. Jimmy Collins is currently serving as the senior planner at the State of Hawaii Office of Homeland Security. She develops, oversees, coordinates, directs, implements, and leads a comprehensive and integrated Homeland Security program for the state of Hawaii in partnership with organizational, federal, state, county, and private sector stakeholders that enhances the overall safety and security of the state of Hawaii. And with that introduction, I'll turn the mic over to Jen to start us off.
All right, thank you, Al. Let me share my screen.
Okay, so I dropped my slides. Okay.
All right.
Can see,
Are you
you're
able to
looking
see
good.
my screen?
Yes. Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much, Al. Hafale, good morning, talofa, aloha, everybody. My name is Jenalyn Labrunda. I'm the cybersecurity advisor for Region 9 under CISA. I cover Guam, CNMI, and American Samoa, as well as Hawaii. I am physically located here on Guam. All right. So CISA's mission is to lead the national effort to understand, manage, and reduce risk to our nation's cyber and physical infrastructure. Our vision is a secure and resilient critical infrastructure for the American people. I am part of Region 9, as mentioned earlier, and that includes the three territories as well as the states of Hawaii, California, Nevada, and Arizona. Our Region 9 headquarters is located in Oakland, California. So today we will be focusing on three key areas of incident response, defining the importance of an incident response plan and understanding cybersecurity incidents. We will also talk about the phases of an incident response plan while outlining multiple detailed phases. We will be talking about incident response plan and also outlining some of the basic strategies for creating an effective plan. While a comprehensive incident response process involves multiple detailed phases, today we'll concentrate on these foundational elements to provide a solid starting point for understanding and developing incident response capabilities. I will be providing additional resources for further reading towards the end of the presentation as well. We will have a brief Q&A, and then I will turn it over to Ms. Jimmy Collins from Hawaii's Office of Homeland Security, and she will also talk about the state of Hawaii's strategy for responding to cyber threats and also present their draft incident response plan. All right, so let's get right to it. So why does incident handling matters, right? Even with all the defenses we have in place, cyber incidents will happen. So it's important to be prepared. Having an incident handling and response plan is crucial in minimizing the damage of a cybersecurity incident. A single data breach can significantly erode customer trust, which is hard to rebuild. By demonstrating preparedness, you can maintain customer confidence, and also effective handling of incidents can improve your reputation. Many of you also operate in regulated industries where failing to comply with cybersecurity regulations can result in hefty fines and legal consequences. Let's not forget the financial implications. Cyber incidents are very, very costly, not just in terms of immediate losses, but also long-term reputational damage. Having a well-prepared plan enables faster recovery, reducing the downtime, and can also help maintain critical operations during a crisis. According to recent studies, over 60% of small and medium-sized businesses go out of business within 6 months of a significant cyber attack. So effective incident handling isn't just a technical necessity, it is a business imperative. Cyber incidents don't affect all sectors equally. Each has its own unique vulnerabilities and consequences. So as an example, in the healthcare sector, patient data breaches can lead to severe privacy violations and legal penalties under regulations like HIPAA. In the finance sector, cyber attacks often aim for financial fraud or theft, undermining customer trust and triggering regulatory scrutiny. In the water and wastewater facilities, they face risks to their critical infrastructure, which can have community-wide impacts. Local governments are also increasingly targeted by ransomware attacks, crippling essential public services. Recognizing these sector-specific impacts will help tailor your incident response strategies accordingly. So let's define what we mean by a cybersecurity incident. Essentially, it's any event that jeopardizes the CIA of your information systems. That's confidentiality, integrity, or availability. So this includes unauthorized access or attacks on your network, data breaches where sensitive information is exposed, or service disruptions like DOS attacks, and even insider threats from employees or contractors misusing their access. Understanding the types of incidents you might face is the first step in preparing to handle them effectively. We will also talk about the different levels of cybersecurity incidents, categorizing them from low, medium to high, and I will discuss these levels in more details in the next few slides. So let's define confidentiality. Confidentiality refers to protecting information from unauthorized access. An incident involving confidentiality compromise means unauthorized access where permission to connect, authenticate, read, write, or delete has not been granted. This can be either logical or physical and can be performed by an individual or another system. Some examples include malware infection, where Trojans or spyware steal data from infected systems. It could also be stolen equipment where laptops, smartphones, or storage devices containing confidential data fall into the wrong hands. Data breaches where unauthorized access to sensitive info like financial records or trade secrets. A confidentiality compromise could also be inappropriate usage. This is where acceptable use policies are violated and can include how data is accessed or transmitted and where information is received from or transmitted to. Examples include business email compromise, adversaries gaining unauthorized access to corporate email accounts to request unauthorized fund transfers or steal sensitive information. It could also be misuse of privileges, so system admins abusing their elevated access rights. So integrity means data are trustworthy, complete, and have not been accidentally altered or modified by an unauthorized user. An incident involving integrity compromise is where data is modified to achieve fraudulent activities to damage a company's reputation or influence public opinion and behavior. Some examples of integrity compromise includes man-in-the-middle attacks, where communications between two parties are intercepted or altered. Data altering, SQL injections, where malicious SQL statements are inserted to manipulate database contents, as well as altering, deleting, or inserting unauthorized data through vulnerable web applications. Ransomware is also a compromise to integrity. This is when data is encrypted and is held for ransom until that ransom is paid, right? So this can also be categorized as an availability compromise because you won't have access to that data. So availability is the assurance that authorized users can access and use information systems, data, and resources when needed. A compromise on availability means that authorized users can't access or use the system, data, and resources, which can lead to system downtime, delayed response, or service interruptions. Examples include ransomware, as mentioned earlier, a DDoS attack, a physical security breach where unauthorized access to data centers leads to system shutdowns or destruction of critical hardware. Data corruption, where errors in data storage or transmission leads to inaccessibility of information. One of the more recent incidents that affected availability was the CrowdStrike outage. That affected multiple companies to include the airline industry. So it was estimated that the outage may have cost Fortune 500 companies over $5 billion in direct losses. All right, so let's talk about the incident severity level. So like a high level security incidents are disruptions that are serious and considered significant. Because of the gravity of the situation and the high potential for harm to the organization, these incidents should be handled immediately. So an example of some of the incidents classified as high is shown here in the table. So for example, a breach of certain types of data, including PII and HIPAA, right? A malware posing a significant wide-ranging risk to system operations, website defacements or compromises, just to name a few. Medium-level security incidents are disruptions that are potentially serious and likely to result in impacts to services or some data exposure. These incidents should be handled within 1 to 4 hours, but certainly on the same day. So some incidents classified as medium are property destruction related to a security incident. So normally the impact costs would be above $25,000, but less than $100,000. Another example would be misuse of organizational property, facilities, and services. Low-level security incidents or disruptions are least severe and may impact 5 systems or less. There is no impact to sensitive data, and any impacts are to non-critical systems. So these incidents should be handled within 3 days. Normally, the cost of the impact for this would be less than $25,000. Examples of incidents classified as low are minor misuse of organization property, facilities, and services, or an employee installing unsupported, unharmful software. All right, so now that you know the the definition of the CIA and what an incident compromise is. We need to, in your incident response plan, make sure to define the type of incidents that affect your confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and also list the severity levels of the types of incident. Not all companies are the same, so what may be a high incident for one company may be a medium for another. So this is important to define it in your incident response plan. This is important because it will help you prioritize your response effort and ensure resources are allocated effectively. This will also help with a tailored response to the incident and to help you understand the impact to your organization and determine the urgency of the response required. By incorporating a triage approach, you can respond more efficiently and effectively to cybersecurity incidents, minimizing potential damage and ensuring that the most critical issues are addressed first. It provides a structured way to assess and manage incidents, which is essential in often chaotic environment of a cybersecurity crisis. So in January 2023, Royal Mail was hit by a ransomware attack that severely disrupted their international shipping services. This attack was linked to the Lockbit ransomware group, which is known for targeting critical infrastructure and demanding high ransoms. As a result, Royal Mail had to halt all international deliveries for several days, causing widespread delays and logistical challenges. Like many ransomware attacks, it started with a phishing email. So an employee unknowingly clicked or opened a malicious attachment, which gave the attackers access to Royal Mail's internal systems. Once inside, they deployed ransomware that encrypted critical files, which included operational data necessary for processing international shipments. This shows that even for large organizations like Royal Mail, a single phishing email can open the door to devastating consequences. So let's talk about some of those consequences, right? So international shipments were suspended. For a postal service like Royal Mail, this was a big issue. Parcels piled up and customers faced significant delays. While Royal Mail didn't publicly disclose the exact financial losses, it's clear that suspending operations for several days combined with recovery efforts must have resulted in significant cost. And just as damaging was the reputational hit. Customers lost trust in Royal Mail's ability to protect its systems, and in such a competitive industry, that loss of trust can have long-lasting effects. Thousands of customers worldwide were affected, with international deliveries being delayed for weeks. So for businesses relying on shipments, this led to further effects in the supply chain. So what's the lessons learned? This attack highlights that email security and employee awareness remains critical. Organizations need to continually train their staff on how to spot phishing emails. But beyond training, technical controls such as email filtering and advanced spam detection systems can help catch these attacks before they reach employees. Also have regular backups and up-to-date backups, right? So organizations should maintain offline backups so that even if ransomware encrypts operational files, the data can be quickly restored without needing to pay the ransom. This is also important to have your incident response plan in place. The plan should cover steps from isolating the infected systems to communicating with stakeholders. These plans need to be regularly tested to ensure they are effective when needed. And lastly, implementing advanced tools like endpoint detection and response systems and anti-ransomware software can help identify and block these types of attacks. All right, so let's do a quick poll here. I wanted to know, what is your biggest cybersecurity concern? And I think Al will be posting that poll shortly. Unfortunately, I can't see the, there
Yeah,
you go. So,
I just posted. Yep.
all right, perfect. So what is your biggest cybersecurity concern? So choose one. You have a choice between data breaches, ransomware, phishing attacks, or insider threats. So if you just select that answer, and that way I could see what your biggest concern is. I'll answer it myself too. All right, I don't see the results, unfortunately, because I have the bill. If you could just give me like a summary of the the poll, that would be great.
I'm not seeing it on my end. Al, are you able to see the results of the poll?
Yeah, I can see it. So right now we've got about 23 of the folks who voted, so about 70%. Phishing attacks is number one. 35% of the folks view phishing attacks, so it's still throttling up. Phishing attacks are still the number one choice. Data breaches and ransomware are kind of tied for second, at about 30% concerned. And then insider threats are the last one. Only about 4% of the respondents have identified insider threats. So phishing attacks is at this point the clear number one choice.
All right. Yeah, and that is a very valid concern because as demonstrated in that Royal Mail incident, right? The threat actor was able to get into the system through a phishing email. So this is why it's important to continually train your employees on how to spot phishing emails and also employ some of those technical resources, right, to make sure that you're properly filtering those emails and preventing some of those spam or phishing emails from coming through your system. All right, thank you for answering those questions. All right, let's see. Let's move on to the phases of incident response lifecycle. So the incident response lifecycle provides a structured approach to handling cybersecurity incidents. It consists of 6 steps. So that's preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication and recovery, and the post-incident activity. So think of this as a continuous cycle aimed at not just responding to incidents, but also improving your defenses over time. So we'll explore each phase in detail to understand how they contribute to an effective incident response strategy. So the first phase is preparation. This is about laying the groundwork, right? And involves developing clear policies and procedures that outline how incidents should be handled. Even if you have a small team, assigning specific roles and responsibilities is crucial. So good preparation can significantly reduce the impact of an incident. So disruptions to an organization's operations may occur regularly and can scale from so small that the impact is essentially negligible to so large that they could prevent an organization from achieving its mission. So employee training is a vital component. Your staff should know how to recognize and report potential incidents. And lastly, ensuring that you have the necessary tools and resources in place, such as security software and backup systems to respond effectively when an incident occurs. So here's an example of the roles and responsibilities of the incident response team in the IT or security department. So this list is not comprehensive and it has taken into account that not every company may have these roles in place. And in that case, you'll just have to identify the person who will fill this role. And that might be just 1 or 2 people, right? So as an example, some of the roles for an IRT is your CISO, CIO, CTO, or equivalent. So that person is the incident response team lead and overall response to security incidents. So that person will form the team, assign tasks to appropriate skill sets, and review the containment plan and eradication plan. They would also assess the threat level and involve outside law enforcement and other agencies as needed. Other roles include your information security or cybersecurity analyst, your IT operations team, right? Your system admins, network admins, database admins, etc., and your desktop support or help desk. Here's another example of an IRT team on your management side. So this is still within your organization. So these are not your technical team, right? But rather your support team who will have a role during an incident response. So some of the roles include your CEO, your attorneys. So the attorney, for example, will provide legal advice as requested or assist when an incident may have legal ramifications. Your finance department, your HR, and your public information officer who will handle media communications and coordinate activities of the communication unit. And then lastly, you have your IRT team on the external side. So this would be your external agencies, your vendors, your other third-party organizations who may assist with incident response as directed by the incident response team lead. So some of the agencies I listed here are CISA and FBI. You would also list here your software or hardware vendor, your internet service provider, and external vendor incident response team if you have that. Other agencies to consider are the specific sector ISACs, so information sharing and analysis center. So there's a financial ISAC, there's a health ISAC, there's a water ISAC. So there's a lot of ISACs out there that may be relevant to your organization. You may also include your cyber insurance providers if you have one, regulatory agencies such as the Department of Health and Human Services for HIPAA incidents or EPA for the water sector. All right, so in your incident response plan, it's important to have that context worksheet, right? So this would have a list of all the roles that we talked about earlier, and then their names and their contact information. Bill will be posting in the chat a copy of this worksheet, so you can take that and just fill in the information. So this worksheet should be part of your incident response plan if you don't already have it. All right. Okay, so now that you know the different roles in an incident response team, it's time to build your communications plan. So your comms plan should include the different roles described earlier, and their responsibilities are listed clearly. Your comms plan should have a common terms list, like a dictionary, right? So this will ensure consistency in how incidents are communicated across the team. Set a schedule for internal updates and define an external message approval process to ensure timely, coordinated responses, and include procedures for media inquiries and updates. Collaborate with your IT team to identify critical systems and develop a PACE communication plans. PACE stands for primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. Also test your backup methods like cell phone and radio-based systems through exercises. Prepare draft statements and talking points for potential incidents, ensuring that they are clearly marked as drafts, and also maintain regular contact with key stakeholders, including the media. All right, let's do another poll. So I provided you a lot of roles earlier, right? So this wouldn't be in a poll box. I just want you to provide your answers in the chat. Could you provide some of the incident response team that were not already mentioned in the previous slides? So this will just type in your answer in the chat box so that I could see what some of the roles that we haven't mentioned earlier.
So Jen, the poll I had was the question was on if a critical system has been compromised by malware, what would you do first? So,
Oh yeah, this poll will come a little bit
oh,
later.
later. Sorry,
Yeah.
my apologies.
No problem. Yeah, I just wanted to see what everyone thinks would be part of their incident response team. So if they could just put that in the chat, that would be great. You know, the roles I provided earlier is not comprehensive, so there may be in certain sectors that I didn't think about and that you may have. So, you know, just wanted to see everybody's feedback on that. Okay, see legal counsel. Yeah, definitely. So if you don't have an internal legal counsel, some companies have external legal counsel, so that would be great. If you could, if you have that, definitely involve them and add them to your incident response team. And if you don't have one, it's probably a good idea to, you know, have a retainer for a legal counsel. All right. I don't see anything else on the chat, so I'll go ahead and move on to our next slide. Okay, so here are some additional resources for an incident response plan, which you can review in more details and incorporate into your organization's plan. These links have, you know, samples of incident response plans and best practices on what to include in your incident response. So as mentioned earlier, not every organization is the same. So tailor your incident response plan so that it fits your organization. All right. And I think Bill will be posting some of those links there too. So you can easily click on it. Or you could also take a screenshot of this slide if you need. All right. So phase 2 is the detection and analysis phase. So the goal here is to quickly identify when an incident has occurred. This requires continuous monitoring of your systems using tools like intrusion detection systems or antivirus software. So be on the lookout for indicators such as unusual network activity, unauthorized access attempts, or reports from employees. And once detected, conduct an initial assessment to understand the scope and impact. Prioritize the incident based on its severity to allocate resources appropriately. So we talked about the comms plan earlier in phase 1, right? So this would be the time to activate the comms plan. So collect accurate information about the incident before responding. Verify the credibility of the information and assess the severity. Determine what is known, what is uncertain, and the information needed. And then engage your crisis communications team and use emergency communication tools if standard systems fail. Keep your internal teams and partners updated with holding statements and talking points. Coordinate across departments like legal and public information officers to maintain a unified response. Inform federal and state partners as appropriate while managing the timing to avoid premature public exposure. Also, communicate early and accurately about the incident. Even if all facts aren't clear, focus on public safety and business operations continuity. Also provide detailed updates to the public highlighting what was and was not impacted and explain security measures in place. Lastly, monitor how your message is being received and adjust accordingly. Create an after-action report to assess the incident and communication strategies. Once an incident is detected, swift action is needed to contain it and prevent further damage. So this might involve isolating effective systems or shutting down certain services. Quick and effective containment can prevent a minor incident from becoming a major breach. All right, and after containment, you would focus on eradicating the root cause. So remove the malware, patch the vulnerabilities, or reimage systems. This is a critical phase in preventing reinfection and future incidents. Finally, restore your systems and data from backups if necessary and ensure that everything is functioning normally. The aim is to return to regular operations as smoothly and quickly as possible. The post-incident response phase is a critical period for improving future incident response capabilities. Some key steps include assessing the impact and effectiveness of the response. So you can utilize the lessons learned from the incident to update your incident response plan. And this would also be a great learning opportunity and to educate your employees. This phase transforms the incident and an opportunity to improve learning from the experience, addressing the vulnerabilities, and enhancing your overall cybersecurity resilience. All right, and this is the last poll, the one that you had posted earlier there, Al. So imagine your organization discovers that a critical system has been compromised by malware. What would you do first? So Al, if you could post that poll again.
Yeah, so we have the poll up and running. So some folks have already responded. If you haven't responded, please go ahead and click on the poll and we'll collect your thoughts.
All right.
So it's coming in. People are clicking now.
So are they going to shut down the system immediately? Are you going to notify your IT team? Are you going to contact law enforcement and ignore it and hope for the best? I hope nobody chose D.
So it's a good thing we have an anonymous poll, so no, we're not recording who said what. Right now, we've got about 50% reporting, and the vast majority, 81%, have said that they would notify their IT team.
All
Um,
right, so that's great actually. So in your incident response plan, you would actually have some of these um, immediate actions, right? So this exercise really helps us think about immediate actions and priorities during an incident. So like I mentioned earlier, not every organization is the same. If you only have a very small team, it's a matter of, hey, notify your IT team immediately. And if it's a small um, set of computers, like after you notify your team, they may tell you, okay, go ahead and remove it from the network, right? But this is where your incident response plan comes in. You would define those incidents and the actions that you would take if such incident happens. All right, thank you for your participation in that poll. And that's basically the end of my presentation here. Al, did you want to take in some questions now, or should we wait until after Jimmy's presentation?
let's do a quick Q&A to see if anyone has any questions right now.
All right.
If you have any questions, actually go ahead and unmute yourself and you can go ahead and speak the question. You can also put it in the chat box. That's fine also. Any questions right now? Okay, at this point, I don't see any questions coming in. So let's go ahead and move to the second half of our presentation. We're going to have Jimmy Collins speak on the state's efforts in this area. And let me go ahead and share her slides. Okay, hopefully everyone can see the first slide on the statewide cybersecurity program. Jimmy, I'll turn it over to you and just let me know when you want me to move to the next slide.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me here today to the whole group. I'm kind of excited. I don't often get a chance to speak to our small and medium-sized businesses, and I understand that's most of what we have gathered here. And I did want to talk a bit about, as Al mentioned, what we're doing in the statewide cybersecurity program that's managed out of my office, as well as the federal, state, and local cybersecurity grant program that we have access to. Go right ahead and flip to the next slide, Al.
Okay, I clicked it. Bear with me, it's not flipping. Okay, there we go.
There we go. It's a little sluggish this late in the afternoon, I guess. I don't know. So you can see the agenda here. I'm going to focus on things that will probably be of more interest to this group. This presentation I've also given to our state and local or county organizations. And so there's a bit more applicability, but I did want to highlight several things that I wanted this group to be aware of in particular. Go right ahead and let's go to the next. And I'm going to start with the cybersecurity program as it is right now. And keep going one more. And I think, judging by the fact that you all are here and participating with CyberHawaii and listening in on these sessions that they've been doing with the CISA at a Department of Homeland Security, I think you probably understand the risk and vulnerability. This is an effort we put forward actually a couple of years ago now. But I will tell you that the risk and the vulnerability hasn't gone down appreciably. This was an effort we did with our emergency management agency just to help them understand where we see the risk of cybersecurity threats in the 4 categories that they kind of monitor in their emergency management world. Go right ahead to the next one. But to help you understand where our office sits in the whole scheme of things, as it were, we have 3 sections in particular that are highly involved in the statewide cybersecurity program. The planning and operations branch, of which I am the chief, we've been working for quite some time now, doing planning and participating in operations, cybersecurity incidents, and so forth. You can see the slate of 3 pretty large undertakings that we have been involved with early on when I came on board in 2020. We did a collaboration with the Enterprise Technology Services that does the IT support for the executive branch of the state government to develop their cyber incident response plan. We took from that process and did a larger, more complex plan that contemplates a cyber incident that may impact multiple organizations and potentially, given our environment here in Hawaii, have national security implications. And that's the statewide cyber disruption response plan that's promulgated now. And more recently, we have developed a statewide cybersecurity strategy and implementation plan that ties back to that grant program I mentioned early on in my introduction. We'll get a chance to highlight a couple of things there. But that's really part of what I wanted to impart to this group, is that we are looking really big and really broad when it comes to cybersecurity. And while we don't necessarily have all of the resources we'd like to reach out into the private sector, we are doing some things that I think that you may want to be aware of. And I'll mention the Fusion Center, the next block down, as one of those. If you are not familiar with our State Fusion Center, it is an information sharing organization that works across several homeland security kind of focal areas, cybersecurity being one of them. And so we utilize the Fusion Center within our office to help disseminate information, to provide alerts and tips and warnings, and to help promulgate, in particular, federal cyber reporting and awareness types of efforts. We can go ahead to the next. And so, kind of in a nutshell, the statewide cybersecurity program began with the outline that should be coming up here shortly. And we had kind of 5 really broad objectives. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm locked up for some reason. Bear with me.
Oh, no worries.
Wow.
I can talk through it while you're trying to figure out how to unlock. So the objectives that we started with for the program were 5 pretty broad ones. One is to dedicate a cybersecurity agency, and that was dedicated actually pre-2020. There was legislation that the state adopted several years before that named the Office of Homeland Security as the state's cybersecurity agency, as it were. And by that, I don't mean that we are the IT department for everybody. By that, what I mean is that we are very, very focused on providing tools and capacity and resources and guidance and matchmaking, as it were, to help others develop their cybersecurity capabilities and enable it in various ways. One, as you see, we are very involved in state response plans, whether it's our Enterprise Technology Services Office, county offices, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, or the Cyber Disruption Response Plan that I mentioned earlier, but also business continuity. We don't have a ton of authorities to assist businesses, but what we do have, we're definitely offering up as ways to help engage and bring those capabilities across our business community into a greater maturity level. One thing I will mention in particular, because it does dovetail nicely with the private sector writ large, and that is integrating the cybersecurity efforts with our state critical infrastructure program, another program that our office leads. And then the other 2 are definitely much more broad in ambition. One is defining cybercrime legislation. We are working on a couple of activities in that realm. But the bigger one is that the last one, the vibrant cybersecurity ecosystem, the mobilizing stakeholders to do a whole range of things, many of which I'm sure you would lean in on as important to your organization. Inspiring our entrepreneurs to innovate, getting cutting edge research, motivating students to pursue cybersecurity careers, and the like that you see there. I'm going to go ahead and move on. If we can go to the next slide and actually flip 2 slides, let me talk a little bit about projects that we currently have underway. As I mentioned, we had been focused early on in planning activities, and we are continuing that to provide some guidance statewide in a variety of ways. One you'll see in Objective 3 was that establishment of the cybersecurity strategy and implementation plan. It was a requirement of the federal, state, and local cybersecurity grant program, and well, as well, a priority for us to provide strategic oversight, provide some guidance, and really neck down into specific activities that we can be undertaking to improve the maturity of the cybersecurity ecosystem here in Hawaii. The other two are currently underway, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into them. You can go ahead and flip to the next. And one more, that's the implementation plan. The thing to highlight here, we've got 16 named projects that are in that implementation plan. We are actively pursuing a number of those, and you'll see in a moment when I highlight those. But really, it's the roadmap that we are following to help build capacity across the state in any way we can. The next slide starts to talk about the cyber incident response plans, and that's been a topic of this conversation here today. And to highlight for this group, we have developed a template for cyber incident response plans, primarily to help our state and local government organizations kind of have a roadmap, if you will, or a format or an outline of the items that they should consider putting in a cyber incident response plan. We modeled it after the incident response plan we built with ETS, as well as our cyber disruption response plan. And we are coupling that development of the template with a couple of things. One highlighted here is incident response exercises to kind of test out those response plans. But the other is, as we offer the template out to participating organizations, is actually providing, office hours, if you will, for a collection of advisors that we have for entities that would like to either develop an incident response plan that they may not have, or refine one that they have on premise right now. And that actually is underway right now. You can see on the next slide. We have completed the review and comment on the draft template. We are doing some refinement on that. In the technical assistance sessions I mentioned, we will be running those, I think, roughly October through December, likely, based on the demand signal that we have. And while the private sector can't necessarily take advantage of the funding that we get through our grant program, you certainly can take advantage of this technical assistance and the template for the cyber incident response plan if you choose to do so. And we would offer that up very, very happily for your consideration. Next, and I'd mentioned to go with these plans, we are working on developing a series of exercises. We are going to be, we are targeting these exercises in the last week of January 2025. We have a bit of planning to do beforehand, but I mention these because we are going to be fielding these exercises in each of the counties. And we are looking for willing participants, including private sector, who would like to walk through a tabletop exercise based on the template for cyber incidents response plans. And just have a dialogue with your local entities that are like-minded or individually, as it may be. The next slide talks a little bit or introduces a bit about the workforce development work that we are doing. So we have taken on developing a strategy and implementation plan for workforce development for the state. I'm sure, as you can appreciate, ginormous exercise that we're working on right now. We've got a really engaged and active working group that's helping us with this across private and public entities. So I'm pretty excited about where this is. In fact, I just got an email today. We've gotten a bunch of comments to incorporate into the draft that we currently have. And I'm looking forward to going through those and doing some final refinement of the plan. Go right ahead to the next. This depicts the focal areas, if you will, the contents that we expect to have for this strategy and implementation plan. Nothing, earth-shattering here. Obviously, education and training, recruitment and retention, continuing learning and development, all kinds of activities that we've highlighted, both as activities that others are engaging on right now, through nonprofit organizations or through universities and so forth. But also those that haven't had as much emphasis or as much energy put into them, that we want to build up to really get a holistic approach to a workforce strategy in the cybersecurity community. Next slide will give you some next steps on where that is. We have reviewed the first draft. The working group has done a review as well. And so we are in the middle of adjudicating all those comments that we received back for a final draft to process through and get published. And then finally, I wanted to touch a little bit, as I mentioned, kind of on the side here, the state and local cybersecurity grant program. Next. So this is a federal program. Our office is the state administrative agency for that grant program. And basically what that means is the federal government sends us a certain amount of money each year. And right now the grant program is only, it only runs for 4 fiscal years. So fiscal year 22, 23, 24, and 25. We do not know if that's going to be extended, but needless, there's a ton of work and some significant resources we have and we'll be getting more of as the grant program rolls out. If you'll go to the next. And as you'll see here, private sector and nonprofits are not actually eligible subrecipients. And I want to foot stomp, though, for this audience in particular. That doesn't mean that you cannot take advantage of some of the activities that we're doing. As I mentioned, with the Cyber Incident Response Plan template, exercises, the workforce development strategy, all of those activities, we absolutely want your participation in. We want to offer those services out. And we are not precluded from doing that. It's just we cannot send you funding that we receive through the grant program, but we can absolutely offer the services, particularly anything that we're centrally procuring across the state. And I'll show you more specificity on that coming up, actually, the next slide. So there are several things that we think would be more effective and efficient if we centrally developed the project and provided the services or the product, as it were, out to all of the eligible subrecipients and actually out to whoever in the state wants to take advantage of them. And so one of those is some services that ETS is going to offer out to the counties. Just based on the way our government is organized, they can't do that. They don't have a direct connection to providing services for the counties. However, under this grant program, we are working ways that they can provide services out beyond the executive branch organizations that they service. So really excited about that opportunity. But more importantly, I think for your purposes, the 4 objectives, the 4, projects under the 2 objectives on this slide would be things that you may well have an interest in. My office will be developing investment options for these. The first one, really significant, I think, is getting a very focused project on threat intelligence and information sharing in the cybersecurity realm. We do not currently have the capacity in the state for cyber analytics, if you will, and threat intelligence development. We do an awful lot of information sharing across the board, and cybersecurity is one of them, but we don't have anything dedicated there. So we are going to be working up a project on that. The next 3 are focused on the workforce development objective. One is developing and deploying a cyber response team. And by that, what we're looking to fashion is a cyber response corps, as it were, folks who would be capable of both doing assessments and evaluations, but also be at the ready to help respond should an entity need more kind of hands on deck in a larger incident. So We're working through what that could consist of and how we might be able to take advantage of some of the amazing subject matter experts we have in the state to develop and deploy a Hawaii cyber response team. I'm really excited, this will probably be the first one that gets funded of these, and that's developing and expanding relationships with academic partners. There's a program that DHS began, I think it's several years ago now, that pairs up university students with smaller organizations who don't have cyber analytic capability, such that the students can provide some insights on threats and vulnerabilities for the organizations that sign up for the service. So it's a bit of a matchmaking between academia and private sector, and as well as locally based critical infrastructure is what we're looking at. So I'm pretty excited here because that really gets at a couple of big wish list items, both developing our educational pipeline, as it were, as well as supporting our local businesses and critical infrastructure. And the final one on this roster is the development and implementation of a standardized cybersecurity training program, really focused on the end user type training, the building awareness, understand what the fish looks like, and how those targeting mechanisms are changing as the threat actors become more sophisticated and AI kind of comes into the game. So we'll be developing a standardized approach to training, and again, as a centrally provisioned service. Would offer that up beyond just our government partners and participants here, if you're interested as an organization in the state. Finally, just a couple of charts. I mentioned, next slide, so we only have 4 years right now under the current federal allocation. These are numbers that are specific to Hawaii. We have received both FY 2022 and FY 2023 monies. And are actively requesting investment proposals from our subrecipients on FY 2022 monies. And we can go to the next slide that highlights a little bit more where the funding lays out for what OHS project proposals are. I mentioned in some detail from just grant administration through the threat intelligence information sharing in the 3 projects we'll be developing under workforce development. Dollar figures to be determined as we develop those out. And then next slide, you'll see the highlight for where we're looking from our subrecipients to focus on assessment and evaluation and mitigation projects. And I would say for this audience in particular, if there are thoughts that you have of things that we could collaborate on, where we could establish a project that you could benefit from without having to receive the funds, I'm certainly open for that. We know that there's more than just the state and local government that needs efforts to mature their cybersecurity capabilities. And I would absolutely entertain options that anyone could think of that we could apply any thoughts and projects to here across the private sector that you might be able to take advantage of. Then finally, just a couple of slides. We do have, as I mentioned, the application is open for investment project proposals. If you wanted to take a look, there's the URL for the FY22 funds. It's been open. It will be open roughly about a month. Closes on the 6th. But you might want to take a look at what kinds of things we're using for the application. Next slide is just the how to apply. And a resource slide is next. And then finally, my contact information. I want to leave you with that slide because if you do have any ideas, next slide. If you do have any ideas, if you're interested in hearing more, if you'd like to become involved with our working groups that are kind of, helping us do the amazing work to put together a workforce development strategy, and we'll be utilizing their expertise along the way as these project proposals come in as well. I'm more than happy to be in touch and to have a dialogue with anyone here. So hope this helps as you might be contemplating exercising your cyber incident response plan or developing it or establishing it. So with that, I will close. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Okay, now we're in our Q&A session period. Let's see, I think we had a couple, actually, looks like we had a question in the chat, which it looks like Jen answered. Um, any other any other questions for Jen or for Jimmy on what we're talking about today? I know we're running a little over, and I think maybe some people jumped off for other meetings. Um, let me just do the last slide. If I can.
Hey, I do have one comment.
Okay,
Yeah, so remember I was talking about the roles and responsibilities and the external agencies that you may want to include in your key contacts list. You should, if you're in Hawaii, consider including the Hawaii Office of Homeland Security, Jimmy Collins's agency, as well as the Fusion Center. So those are the other entities you may consider adding into your key contacts list.
perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I think a big part of this series is making sure that folks in the community know who they can reach out to and talk to about concerns or desires to participate. So in this last slide, I just want to put the contact information again for both Jenilyn and for Jimmy. Please reach out to them if you have any questions on this topic or any others related to cybersecurity. And then I also wanted to let you know that for next month, we'll be moving away from our normal webinar approach, and we'll actually be having a face-to-face event at UH West Oahu campus. This is effectively the culminating event for the 2024 Fortify Cybersecurity Series, and we're calling it the Cybersecurity Roadshow or Product Roadshow. And the goal is really to try and showcase some applications that businesses can take advantage of in their own networks. These predominantly are offerings from CISA and advice from folks like the FBI and Coast Guard about how to implement safe controls. And the nice thing is that because these are taxpayer funded already, you don't have to pay a fee to actually implement them. We will also try and have some vendors there who offer products on a fee for service type basis. And it's basically an event that we're hoping will let folks come in and try things out, or at least ask questions of the experts on a small group type basis. So November 12th and 13th, we're working on the information and event registration right now, so be on the lookout for that. So with that, that concludes our webinar for today. If you have any questions, again, the presenters are available. You can also send them to me, and we can start a conversation. So with that, I'll thank you very much for attending. I hope that you got something valuable out of today's session, and wish you a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Mahalo. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Al. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.